Shaban has begun, and most people have no idea what that actually means. They think Ramadan is where everything changes. They think effort begins with fasting. They think discipline creates transformation. But according to the spiritual wisdom of Ibn ʿArabi, by the time Ramadan arrives, everything important has already been decided. Shaban is not a warm-up month. It is not a quiet month. And it is definitely not optional. It is the month where Allah watches, who turns willingly before He commands. Some hearts respond now gently. Others wait to be forced later. And that single difference determines whether Ramadan feels like light or like weight. Tonight, you will learn what most people miss every single year. What you must do in Shaban, what you must never do, and why ignoring this month silently blocks the blessings of Ramadan, even if you fast every day. This is not surface advice. This is not motivation. This is about position, direction, and readiness. Because Ramadan does not ask who you want to become. It magnifies who you already are. And Shaban decides that. Listen carefully. 1. Shaban is the month of positioning, not action. Most people misunderstand Shaban because they measure spirituality by how much they do. More prayers, more fasting, more effort. But according to the spiritual vision of Ibn ʿArabi, the most important moments are not judged by quantity. They are judged by direction. Shaban is not asking you to run. It is asking you to turn, because a person running in the wrong direction only gets farther from where they need to be. This is the hidden danger of Shaban. You can be active and still be misaligned. In Sufi understanding, Allah looks first at where the heart is facing, not how fast the body is moving. Shaban exists to correct that direction before the weight of Ramadan arrives. Think of it this way. Ramadan is light. But light only benefits what is facing it. If the heart is turned away, distracted, divided, attached, even Ramadan passes like a shadow. That is why Shaban is called a month of positioning. It is the quiet space where Allah allows you to notice what direction your desire is facing, what your intention is truly centered on, whether your heart is leaning toward Him or toward habit. And this realization often feels uncomfortable because Shaban removes urgency. It removes pressure. And when urgency disappears, truth becomes visible. You begin to see what you delay when no one is forcing you, what you cling to when sacrifice is optional, what you tell yourself you'll fix later. Shaban is the month where excuses are exposed gently, not to shame you, but to invite you. What must you do in Shaban? You must reorient, not with dramatic changes, not with spiritual performances, but with small, honest turns, turning away from distractions that numb the heart, turning toward remembrance, even briefly, turning your intention from Ramadan will change me to I will arrive ready. This is why the people of insight never wait for Ramadan to wake up. They arrive awake. And what must you avoid? The greatest mistake in Shaban is waiting for pressure to create sincerity. Ramadan is discipline. Shaban is willingness. If willingness is missing, discipline becomes heavy. Shaban asks one quiet question. If no one demanded anything from you, would you still turn to Allah? Your answer to that question determines everything that follows. This is why Shaban feels subtle but decisive. Nothing dramatic happens outwardly. But inwardly, a direction is chosen. And when Ramadan arrives, it does not ask where you want to go. It magnifies the direction you were already facing. This is the mercy of Shaban. It gives you time to turn before the light becomes intense. Shaban reveals what you truly love. One of the most unsettling teachings in the spiritual vision of Ibn ʿArabi is this: divine seasons do not change people. They expose them. Shaban does not come to make you better. It comes to show you the truth quietly, honestly, without pressure. Because when obligation is absent, love becomes visible. This is why Shaban is dangerous for the inattentive heart. There is no fasting forcing you awake. no nightly prayers demanding effort, no public pressure to perform. And in that absence, something reveals itself. What you turn to when Allah is not demanding anything from you. This is the question Shaban asks without words. What do you love when nothing is required? And most people don't like the answer. They discover that when Ramadan is not near, remembrance fades easily, discipline weakens, attention scatters, not because they are evil, but because love has competitors. Ibn ʿArabi explains that the heart is always devoted to something. There is no empty heart, only redirected ones. Shaban reveals those directions. You begin to notice what occupies your thoughts in quiet moments, what you reach for when bored or tired, what you protect from being interrupted. These are not random habits. They are indicators of attachment. Shaban does not accuse you of them. It simply shows them to you before Ramadan arrives to challenge them. What must you do in Shaban? You must observe without lying to yourself. Not judging, not justifying, not panicking, just noticing. Because awareness is the beginning of purification. When you see what competes with Allah in your heart, you have been given a gift, the gift of honesty before discipline begins. What must you avoid? The worst mistake is pretending. Pretending you are ready when you are not. Pretending your heart is clean because your actions look religious. Pretending Ramadan will fix attachments you refuse to confront. Ramadan does not remove idols. It exposes them more sharply. Shaban is merciful because it reveals idols while the cost is still low. And this is where Ibn Arabi's wisdom cuts deeply. Whatever you are unwilling to loosen in Shaban will resist you in Ramadan. Not because Allah is harsh, but because attachment does not surrender easily under pressure. This is why the people of insight do something subtle in Shaban. They do not fight their desires violently. They loosen them. A little less indulgence, a little more remembrance, a slight shift in attention, not to prove strength, but to test love. Shaban asks, if Allah asks gently, do you still turn toward Him? Those who answer yes, even imperfectly, enter Ramadan softened. Those who ignore the question enter Ramadan conflicted. This is the hidden wisdom of Shaban. It does not demand that you love Allah perfectly. It asks whether He is still your priority when no one is watching. 3. Treating Shaban as optional is the most dangerous mistake. One of the most subtle spiritual errors is not rebellion, it is delay. According to the spiritual insight of Ibn ʿArabi, divine time is arranged with intention. Nothing precedes something sacred by accident. Shaban is not a filler month. It is not neutral, and it is not optional. It is placed before Ramadan because something must happen before the weight of obligation descends. Most people tell themselves a comforting lie. I will change in Ramadan. But Ibn ʿArabi would say, Ramadan does not create change. It intensifies what already exists. This is why ignoring Shaban is dangerous. Because Shaban is where Allah gives you space. And space reveals willingness. There is no pressure yet. No hunger forcing humility. No exhaustion pushing sincerity. Only opportunity. And when opportunity is ignored, it hardens into resistance. Shaban is the month where Allah says quietly, come to me willingly before I call you firmly. Those who respond enter Ramadan softened. Those who delay enter Ramadan resistant even while fasting. This is why some people feel Ramadan as light and others feel it as burden. Not because Allah treated them differently, but because Shaban was treated differently. What must you do in Shaban? You must take it seriously without dramatizing it. Not by overwhelming yourself, but by honoring the placement of the month. Even small changes matter here. A conscious intention to prepare, a deliberate slowing of distractions, a quiet acknowledgement that something sacred is approaching. These small acts signal willingness, and willingness changes how divine time receives you. What must you avoid? The fatal mistake is postponement. Postponement feels harmless. It feels patient. It feels logical. But spiritually, postponement trains the heart to resist responding when called. Every time you say, later, the heart learns delay. And when Ramadan arrives, the heart delays again, even while the body obeys. This is the tragedy Ibn Arabi warns against. A person can fast, pray, and restrain the body, while the heart remains unmoved. Shaban exists to prevent that fracture. It teaches the heart to respond before command intensifies, because Allah loves willing return more than forced obedience. Shaban is mercy disguised as time. Ignore it, and Ramadan becomes heavy. Honor it, and Ramadan becomes opening. This is why the people of insight do not ask, "Is Shaban important?" They ask, "How ready am I willing to become before I am required to be?" And that answer determines everything that follows. 4. Shaban is where the ego is softened before it is broken. One of the greatest dangers on the spiritual path is not sin, it is hardness. According to the inner vision of Ibn Arabi, divine openings do not descend on hearts that are rigid, defensive, or self-protected. They descend on hearts that are soft. And Shaban exists for one primary reason: to soften what Ramadan will later confront. Most people think humility appears when hunger arrives, but Ibn Arabi teaches something far more unsettling. If humility does not begin willingly, it will be forced. Shaban is the month where Allah offers you a choice. Lower yourself gently now, or be humbled harshly later. This is why Shaban often feels uncomfortable for the ego. Nothing dramatic is happening outwardly. No public worship, no visible struggle. Yet inwardly, something feels exposed. You begin to notice how easily you become irritated, how attached you are to being right, how resistant you are to correction, how much of your religion protects your self-image. Shaban reveals the ego not by attacking it, but by removing urgency. When pressure disappears, the ego relaxes its mask, and that is when its true shape appears. This is why many people feel spiritually restless in Shaban. They are not being tested by hunger. They are being tested by honesty. What must you do in Shaban? You must practice voluntary humility, not humiliation, not self-hatred, but conscious lowering of the self. This can look very small, letting go of the need to respond immediately, accepting correction without defending yourself, admitting inwardly where you fall short, releasing the need to appear spiritually advanced. These acts feel insignificant, but they create softness, and softness is what receives divine light. What must you avoid? The most dangerous response in Shaban is spiritual pride. Pride does not always say, "I am better." Sometimes it says, "I am fine. I'll change later. I already know this. I've done Ramadan many times." Ibn Arabi warns that familiarity is one of the ego's most subtle weapons. When the sacred becomes familiar, reverence disappears. And when reverence disappears, the heart hardens. Shaban interrupts that familiarity. It asks, "Are you still willing to bow inwardly, even when no one is watching?" Because Ramadan will demand submission of the body. But only Shaban reveals whether the ego is willing to surrender without force. This is the hidden mercy of this month. Allah gives you time to soften yourself, not to shame you, not to expose you publicly, but to prepare you inwardly. Those who refuse this softness enter Ramadan with resistance buried deep inside. They fast but resent. They pray but feel heavy. They restrain the body, but the ego fights silently. Those who accept softness in Shaban experience Ramadan differently. Fasting feels lighter. Prayer feels natural. Discipline feels aligned. Not because they are stronger, but because they are no longer resisting. Shaban teaches the ego a final lesson before Ramadan begins. Lower yourself now, so you are not broken later. And those who listen are spared a great inner struggle. 5. Shaban is the month of inner silence, not outer noise. One of the least understood realities of the spiritual path is this: Allah does not speak loudly to hearts that are constantly talking. According to the inner science articulated by Ibn ʿArabi, divine meanings descend into stillness, not agitation. They appear in hearts that have learned how to be quiet not only outwardly, but inwardly. Shaban is the month where that quiet is gently requested. Not demanded, not enforced, invited. This is why Shaban feels strange to many people. There is no dramatic struggle yet, no hunger forcing reflection, no exhaustion silencing the ego. And yet, something feels unsettled. Because when external pressure decreases, internal noise becomes audible. Shaban reveals how loud the inside of the heart really is. Thoughts racing, desires speaking over one another, worries looping endlessly, distractions piling without resistance. This inner noise is not sinful, but it is blocking. Ibn ʿArabi teaches that the heart is like a vessel. What it is filled with determines what it can receive. A heart crowded with constant stimulation has no space for subtle meaning. And Shaban arrives as mercy before Ramadan, saying quietly, "Empty yourself before I fill you." What must you do in Shaban? You must begin learning inner restraint, not from food yet, but from excess. Excess speech, excess consumption, excess stimulation, excess emotional reaction. Shaban is not about silence of the tongue alone. It is about silence of the compulsion to check, the compulsion to scroll, the compulsion to react, the compulsion to fill every quiet moment. These compulsions seem harmless, but they train the heart to fear stillness, and a heart that fears stillness cannot hear guidance. Shaban gently exposes this fear. You sit quietly, and restlessness rises. You pause, and discomfort appears. You withdraw, and the ego feels threatened. This is not failure. This is revelation. It shows you where silence has been avoided and where healing must begin. What must you avoid? The greatest mistake in Shaban is overfilling the heart. Many people think preparation means adding more content, more talk, more stimulation disguised as motivation. But Ibn ʿArabi would say, a heart that is always being filled cannot be illuminated. Shaban is subtraction, not addition. Less noise, less indulgence, less unnecessary engagement. Not because the world is evil, but because the heart needs space. Ramadan will pour light into the heart, but light cannot settle where chaos remains. This is why some people feel overwhelmed in Ramadan. Not because Ramadan is heavy, but because the heart was never quieted beforehand. Shaban teaches the heart how to sit still with Allah, how to endure silence without fleeing, how to listen without interrupting, how to exist without constant input. This is deeply uncomfortable at first, because silence exposes everything we've been avoiding. Unresolved emotions, unexamined intentions, unspoken guilt, hidden attachments. But this exposure is mercy. Allah shows you what needs attention before fasting magnifies it. Those who accept silence in Shaban begin to notice something subtle. Moments of calm appear. Remembrance feels natural. Prayer becomes less forced. Awareness deepens quietly. Nothing dramatic, nothing public, but inwardly, the heart becomes spacious. And when Ramadan arrives, that space fills effortlessly. Those who refuse inner silence experience the opposite. Ramadan becomes loud, thoughts intensify, emotions overwhelm. Worship feels crowded instead of clear, not because they are weak, but because the heart never learned to be still. Shaban exists to teach that lesson gently. It whispers, "Learn to be quiet with me, so my words can reach you." And those who listen enter Ramadan, not chasing spirituality, but receiving it. 6. Shaban determines how Ramadan sees you. One of the most unsettling truths on the spiritual path is this: you do not simply enter sacred time. Sacred time recognizes you. According to the inner vision taught by Ibn ʿArabi, moments are not empty containers waiting to be filled. They are living realities that respond to the state of the heart that approaches them. Ramadan is not neutral. It does not receive everyone the same way. It looks at what Shaban has prepared. This is why two people can fast the same hours, pray the same prayers, and recite the same verses. Yet one feels expanded, and the other feels constrained. The difference is not effort, it is reception. Shaban quietly determines how Ramadan will meet you, as a guest or as a burden. Most people think Ramadan transforms them automatically, but Ibn Arabi would say, Ramadan magnifies what you bring with you. If you arrive softened, it lifts you. If you arrive distracted, it overwhelms you. If you arrive sincere, it opens you. If you arrive resistant, it presses you. Shaban is the month where this is decided, not through grand acts, but through inner posture. How do you approach Allah when no one is demanding discipline yet? Do you turn willingly or wait to be forced? Do you approach gently or drag yourself later? Do you listen now or postpone sincerity? These answers form your spiritual signature, and Ramadan responds to that signature without mercy or favoritism. Only truth. What must you do in Shaban? You must prepare your inward state, not your schedule. Many people prepare Ramadan with calendars, goals, and plans. But Ibn Arabi teaches that the heart must be prepared before the body is organized. Preparation means reconciling inwardly with Allah, letting go of quiet resentment, reducing inner resistance, admitting where sincerity is weak. This work is invisible. No one praises it. No one says it, but it determines everything. Shaban is where Allah allows you to approach Him without pressure, so you can discover whether your turning is real. What must you avoid? The most dangerous illusion is thinking ritual guarantees reception. You can fast and remain distant. You can pray and remain distracted. You can restrain the body while the heart remains rebellious. Ramadan does not respond to performance. It responds to presence, and presence is built in Shaban. This is why some people experience Ramadan as clarity and mercy, while others experience it as tension and fatigue, not because Allah changed, but because the heart was not prepared to receive. Shaban is mercy because it warns you before intensity arrives. It asks, are you coming willingly, or are you being dragged? Because what you resist before Ramadan becomes heavier during it, and what you embrace gently before Ramadan becomes effortless within it. Those who take Shaban seriously begin Ramadan already aligned. Their fasting feels purposeful. Their prayers feel intimate. Their restraint feels natural, not because they are better, but because they are no longer fighting inwardly. Those who ignore Shaban enter Ramadan conflicted. The body obeys, but the heart resists. The actions increase, but peace decreases. The rituals multiply, but presence weakens. This is the tragedy Ibn Arabi quietly warns about. A person can be inside Ramadan, while Ramadan has not entered them. Shaban exists to prevent that separation. It is the final chance to align your inward direction before sacred time magnifies everything. Because Ramadan does not ask what you intend to become. It reveals what you already are, and Shaban decides that. 7. Shaban is mercy before discipline and invitation before command. The final misunderstanding about Shaban is the most costly one. People think Shaban is insignificant because it is gentle. But in the spiritual vision of Ibn Arabi, gentleness is not weakness. It is mercy arriving early. Shaban is Allah's quiet approach before His firm address. Before fasting is required, before restraint becomes obligatory, before nights demand standing and days demand hunger, Shaban arrives without force. And that is precisely why it is decisive. Because Allah is showing you something about yourself. Who responds when there is no pressure? Discipline reveals obedience, but Shaban reveals love. Anyone can obey when commanded, but only the sincere turn toward Allah when they are invited. This is the deepest secret of Shaban. It is not about preparing the body. It is about exposing whether the heart moves willingly. Shaban does not threaten you. It does not burden you. It does not demand. It whispers, and whispers are only heard by hearts that are already inclined. This is why Shaban separates people silently. Some feel nothing and move on unchanged. Others feel a quiet pull, subtle, persistent, impossible to ignore. That pull is mercy. It is Allah saying, "Come closer now while the door is light, so you are not shocked by its weight later." What must you do in Shaban? You must respond to mercy before discipline arrives. Not dramatically, not perfectly, but honestly. This means turning toward Allah before hunger forces humility. Seeking closeness before exhaustion creates surrender. Softening before pressure breaks resistance. Shaban allows you to return without pain. Ramadan will still bring discipline. But discipline after willingness feels different. It feels aligned, not imposed. What must you avoid? The most dangerous mistake is ignoring mercy. Because mercy ignored does not disappear. It transforms into obligation, and obligation without willingness feels heavy. Ibn ʿArabi teaches that Allah's way is gradual, not sudden. He invites, then He prepares, then He commands. Shaban is invitation. Ramadan is command. Those who accept the invitation experience the command as light. Those who ignore the invitation experience the command as burden. This is why some people complain during Ramadan. They say, "I feel tired, I feel distant, I feel overwhelmed." But the problem was not Ramadan. The problem was the mercy that came before it and was ignored. Shaban is Allah's final kindness before intensity. It is Him saying, "Return now, gently, or return later, forcefully." And Allah prefers willing hearts. This is why the people of insight take Shaban seriously, not because it is dramatic, but because it is revealing. They understand that the greatest loss is not missing worship, it is missing the invitation. Because once Ramadan begins, the door narrows, the pace quickens, the demands increase, the pressure intensifies. Shaban is the only month where Allah gives you space to choose Him freely. No hunger pushing you, no fatigue humbling you, no obligation cornering you. Just a call, and that call sounds different to every heart. Some hear nothing, some hear noise, some hear urgency, but the sincere hear familiarity. They recognize the voice because they have been listening, and when Ramadan arrives, they do not rush to catch up. They are already there. This is the final truth of Shaban. It is not meant to exhaust you. It is meant to invite you. And invitations refused become commands. But invitations accepted become closeness. Shaban has begun. And whether you feel it or not, you have already been invited. Shaban has begun. And whether you felt it or not, something has already started moving. Not outwardly, inwardly. This month is not demanding perfection from you. It is asking for attention. According to the wisdom of Ibn ʿArabi, Allah does not rush the sincere heart. He invites it. And Shaban is that invitation. A quiet moment before intensity. A gentle call before command. A chance to turn without pressure. You do not need to change everything tonight. You do not need to become someone new. You only need to turn even slightly, because when Ramadan arrives, it will not ask what you intended to do. It will magnify the direction you were already facing. So turn now, while the door is soft. While mercy speaks before discipline, Shaban is not passing, it is preparing you. And how you respond now will decide how Ramadan responds to you.